So if you break your arm, an X-ray gives you this, this jagged white line.
Right. An objective fact.
Exactly. You can point right to it on the screen. But human communication doesn't really have an X-ray machine.
No, it definitely doesn't.
We don't have a screen that perfectly displays our internal reality to the people around us. And that's what we're getting into today. Welcome to another deep dive.
Glad to be here.
So for you listening right now, I want you to think about how you describe your day so far. Like if I just bumped into you, asked...
Just handing over the raw facts or the actual experience?
Right. And today, we are deep diving into this fascinating source material. It's an excerpt from an English language learning program called Advanced Pod Zone.
Yeah, specifically a masterclass taught by instructors Emma and John.
Right. And it's called Elevating Daily Fluency. And look, their whole thing is that treating your conversations like objective, factual X-rays is, well, it's basically the number one reason you're failing to connect with people.
Which is such a bold claim. And I mean, they frame this curriculum for English language learners, people trying to move from intermediate to advanced levels.
Yeah.
But the actual mechanics of what they're teaching, they apply to absolutely everyone.
Oh, totally. Because we're really looking at the absolute bedrock of how human beings relate through language.
Exactly. The mission today is to unpack exactly how a simple, factual sentence, like the kind you've probably used, 3 times this morning, gets transformed.
Right, transformed into this sophisticated, emotionally resonant statement that just naturally shows real confidence.
And it's not just a vocabulary drill, which is what I love about it.
No, not at all. Emma and John are basically teaching a whole philosophy of brain training.
Right. They emphasize that adding feeling and rhythm and contextual detail to everyday interactions, it literally trains your brain.
To think in fuller sentences, as Emma puts it, which is just such a cool concept.
It really is. But to bridge that gap, to get to that advanced level, we first have to examine the default state that Emma and John identify in their students.
Right, the baseline.
Yeah, they look at this baseline, which is basically the trap of the purely factual, choppy sentence.
Okay, let's unpack this, because this is where most people get stuck. Right.
Exactly. Emma asks her students to describe their morning routine, and she notes that the overwhelming default is a sequence that sounds exactly like this.
I can guess.
It's just, I woke up, I ate breakfast, I went to work.
Oh, wow. Yeah, when I hear that sequence, it feels like I'm reading a police report.
Right.
It's grammatically correct, it's chronological, but I mean, it's just entirely sterile. Speaking in these basic sentences is like giving someone the ingredients list instead of cooking them the actual meal.
That's a great way to put it.
Like it gets the facts across, sure, but there's absolutely no flavor.
Yeah.
So how does this lack of flavor impact how the listener perceives your confidence?
Well, what's fascinating here is why these sentences fall flat. Like you said, they are purely transactional.
Yeah.
They communicate raw data, but completely lack the human element. John specifically characterizes these types of sentences as short and choppy.
Choppy, right.
And to understand why we default to this, we really have to look at the cognitive load of communication.
Like how hard our brain is working.
Exactly. When we are unsure of ourselves, whether we're speaking a new language or just navigating, a high-stakes social environment like a new job, our brains prioritize safety.
Oh, interesting. So it's a defense mechanism.
Yes. And the safest possible ground in human interaction is undeniable objective fact. I mean, no one can dispute, I woke up.
Right. You can't argue with that. It's a defensive posture. It's like the linguistic equivalent of a turtle pulling its head into its shell.
Exactly.
You're communicating technically, but you aren't really participating. You're handing the other person this sealed box.
A sealed box, yeah.
You're saying, here are the facts of my morning in this box.
Yeah.
And then you're forcing the listener to do all the work. They have to pry the box open with follow-up questions if they want to know anything about your actual state of mind.
Which is exhausting for the listener.
Totally exhausting.
And that sealed box dynamic is crucial to understand because when you rely on these short, choppy facts, you are actively withholding the human element.
Right, because waking up isn't just one simple thing.
Exactly. The physical act of waking up, preparing food, commuting, these are complex experiences. They involve sensory details, fluctuating emotional states, environmental factors.
Yeah, like whether the coffee was good or terrible.
Right. And reducing all of that to just, I woke up, completely strips the texture from your reality.
It really does.
John points out that their goal is to turn these simple facts into expressions that sound natural and sophisticated, because that choppiness isn't just a syntax issue. It actively operates as a social barrier.
And this connects directly to Emma's observation about confidence, right? She explicitly states that moving toward the advanced versions of these sentences shows more confidence.
Yes, she makes that very clear.
And if we really look at the mechanics of that, a choppy sentence kind of signals that you're just trying to survive the interaction. You just want to get to the end of your sentence.
You're rushing to the finish line.
Exactly. But a fuller, more descriptive sentence takes up space in the room. It volunteers subjective experience, which is inherently vulnerable.
It really is.
Like, if you tell me your breakfast was delicious, I could theoretically disagree with your taste in food. You've opened yourself up to judgment, which obviously requires confidence.
You've identified the core tension Emma and John are trying to resolve here. It's the conflict between safety and expression.
Right.
Emma states right in the introduction that the ultimate goal is to help students express themselves freely.
But you can't be free if you're stuck in that turtle shell.
Exactly. You cannot express yourself freely if you are trapped in a defensive posture of reciting facts. You have to learn how to actively volunteer your internal state.
Okay, so how do we actually get out of that defensive posture? Because Emma and John don't just say, hey, be more confident.
No, they give actual actionable advice.
Yeah, they provide highly specific mechanical techniques to transform these sentences. And they focus heavily on injecting rhythm and emotion. So let's look at the first transformation they provide from the source.
Let's do it.
So the basic baseline sentence is just, I woke up early.
Very standard.
Right. But John offers this advanced alternative. He says, I managed to wake up surprisingly early this morning, which gave me some extra time to prepare for the day.
I love this example. The shift from objective data to subjective experience here is basically a masterclass in subtlety.
It really is a completely different vibe.
It is. Let's isolate the specific vocabulary additions he uses. He doesn't just say, I woke up. He says, I managed to wake up.
Yes. That phrase right there, managed to, it completely alters the social dynamic of the whole sentence.
How so?
Well, it introduces this subtle narrative of triumph. It implies there was resistance.
Yeah.
Like maybe the bed was super warm, maybe they were exhausted from the night before, but they overcame the friction of the morning.
Right. They fought a mini battle and won.
Exactly. It inserts human agency into what is otherwise just a biological function.
It establishes an internal locus of control. And then he follows it with surprisingly early.
Oh, I love that part.
Because early is an objective measurement of time, right? You look at a clock. But surprisingly reveals the speaker's internal baseline to the listener.
Like even they didn't expect to be up that early.
Exactly. The speaker themselves did not expect this outcome. So suddenly we're getting a glimpse into their personality and their typical habits.
Yeah, we aren't just hearing about the time on the clock. We're participating in their mild amusement at their own productivity.
Right. And Emma reacts to this by telling the students, you can really hear the difference. The second version is fuller, smoother, and shows more confidence.
And she is entirely right.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't sound boastful at all. It just sounds comfortable.
It does. It sounds like someone who is comfortable in their own skin.
So let's look at the second example they use. The basic one is just, I eat breakfast.
Another police report sentence.
Right. And John transforms this into, I enjoyed a quick but delicious breakfast before heading out, and it really set a positive tone for my morning.
This one is brilliant. If the first example was about agency, this one is entirely about qualitative texture.
Texture, I like that.
Because I ate breakfast is just the biological intake of calories. It's purely functional. But I enjoyed a quick but delicious breakfast describes an emotional state.
The pivot point is the word enjoyed.
Exactly. He takes a mundane, everyday routine and frames it entirely through the lens of pleasure.
And that modifying phrase, quick but delicious, is incredibly efficient character building, if you think about it.
It really paints a picture.
It does. It acknowledges the universal reality of a rushed morning like, yes, it was quick, but it insists that joy wasn't sacrificed. It was still delicious.
Right. It paints a picture of someone who is busy, sure, but still deeply appreciative of their environment.
They're stopping to smell the roses, or taste the coffee in this case.
And the most sophisticated part of that sentence is actually the conclusion, the part where he says, and it really set a positive tone for my morning.
Yeah, why is that part so important?
Well, John is very deliberate in pointing out that this sentence doesn't just describe the action, it adds feeling and detail.
Okay.
By stating how the breakfast affected his tone for the entire day, he's telling the listener not just what occurred, but how he processed what occurred.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And sharing your processing mechanisms with another person is basically the fundamental definition of intimacy in a conversation.
That's a profound way to look at it.
Yeah.
But, having the right vocabulary is really only half the battle here.
That's very true.
Because if you deliver that beautiful, descriptive sentence about your breakfast in a breathless, terrified rush, you haven't actually solved the problem.
You've just built a longer, more complicated sealed box.
Exactly. You're just a turtle reciting a longer poem inside your shell. And this is where John gives a very specific piece of physical direction.
Yes, the physical mechanics.
Right. He tells the listener, try to say it naturally with a little pause between the two parts of the sentence. He actively instructs them to add rhythm and flow.
This emphasis on the physical mechanics of speech, specifically that pause, is just brilliant pedagogy from John.
It makes such a difference. How does that physical pause actually make you sound more sophisticated, though?
Well, the mechanics of breathing and speaking are inextricably linked to the nervous system.
Okay, so it's biological.
Very much so. When someone is trapped in that defensive, factual posture we talked about, their breathing naturally becomes shallow.
Like they're in fight or flight.
Exactly. They want to expel the words as quickly as possible and retreat back to silence. Rushing through a sentence is a physiological symptom of social anxiety.
So when John demands that they add a pause between the clauses of the sentence, he is essentially demanding that they take control of the physical space of the interaction.
Yes. A deliberate pause is a profound signal of social dominance, or at the very least, social comfort.
It shows you're not afraid of silence.
Right. It signals to the listener, hey, I'm comfortable holding the floor here. I have a complete, complex thought, and I trust that you will not interrupt me while I take a breath to finish it.
Oh, that's powerful.
It really is. It triggers mirror neurons in the listener that interpret that calm, regulated breathing as deep-seated confidence.
It's basically the mortar between the bricks of the conversation. John says, advanced English is often about expanding your ideas and connecting them smoothly. So instead of short, choppy sentences, you learn to build longer, connected sentences.
Right, the connection is key.
And the pause allows the listener's brain to actually digest the first idea before you introduce the second one. It shows immense respect for the listener's cognitive load.
And John reinforces this with a vital visualization technique, too. He tells the students, imagine you are actually telling someone about your morning in real life.
Which seems obvious, but it's so important.
It is. He is actively trying to pull them out of the sterile academic environment of a language textbook and place them right into the messy reality of a coffee shop or a break room.
Because the goal isn't passing a grammar test. It's relating to a human being.
Precisely.
Which brings us to the next evolution of Emma and John's curriculum. Expanding single sentences with feeling and rhythm is just the foundation, right?
Step one.
But the source material pushes further by teaching learners how to embed those sentences into a larger context, a context that actually invites the other person to participate. They introduce this concept of the mini-narrative.
Yes, because they recognize that describing an action beautifully is kind of pointless if it just leads to a conversational dead end.
Right, you need somewhere to go.
Exactly. So they take the classic basic sentence, I went to work, and John provides two distinct advanced alternatives to replace this.
Okay, let's hear them.
The first one is, I made my way to work feeling energized and ready to tackle the challenges of the day.
Nice.
And the second one is, I commuted to work this morning, and although the traffic was heavy, I used the time to listen to an inspiring podcast.
Okay, let's break down the architecture of these two options, because I feel like they achieve very different things.
They absolutely do.
The first one, feeling energized and ready to tackle the challenges. That projects an entire attitude.
It does. It's very forward-moving.
Yeah, tackle the challenges is such an active, robust phrase. It completely erases the passive resignation of just saying, I went to work. It tells the listener that this person is a proactive force.
Right. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the second option is even more strategically complex.
The podcast one.
Yes. Although the traffic was heavy, I used the time to listen to an inspiring podcast. This is essentially a micro-story of overcoming adversity.
Oh, that's so true.
It demonstrates emotional regulation. Right. They didn't let the heavy traffic ruin their baseline mood. It demonstrates resourcefulness and intellectual curiosity.
And crucially, it functions as a conversational hook.
Yes, exactly.
A conversational hook. It's like throwing a line in the water and just waiting for the other person to bite.
That's a perfect analogy.
Because if you hand someone that sealed box of, I went to work, the only real response they can muster is like, okay. Or maybe, how was the drive?
Which is pretty boring.
Super boring.
Yeah.
But by adding the specific detail of an inspiring podcast, you're practically begging them to ask a follow-up question.
You are handing them the exact blueprint for how to continue the conversation.
Right.
The natural human response to that sentence is, oh, really? What podcast are you listening to?
Exactly. You've built a bridge from your internal experience directly into their areas of interest. You are doing the heavy lifting of the conversation for them.
Making it incredibly easy for them to connect with you. And we see this exact principle of making things easy for the listener applied in their next scenario.
Which is what?
John poses the most common, mundane question in human history. He says, imagine someone asks you, how is your morning?
Ooh, the dreaded water cooler question.
Right. And the basic default answer he identifies is simply, it was good.
Which is just the ultimate conversation killer. Gives the other person absolutely nothing to work with.
Nothing at all. John points out, that's too short. So Emma provides the advanced alternative.
Okay, let's hear her version.
She suggests, my morning was quite productive, actually. I managed to finish a few important tasks, and I even had time to enjoy a peaceful cup of tea before starting work.
Okay, I have to step in here and challenge this slightly.
Uh-oh, what's the issue? Peaceful cup of tea. Look, if I casually ask a colleague at the water cooler how their morning was, and they launch into this highly structured soliloquy about important tasks and peaceful cups of tea,
You're going to think it's a bit much.
my immediate reaction might be to check my watch. Like, is there a risk here of over-explaining? Does this level of detail start to sound scripted and, I don't know, self-important if it's not calibrated correctly?
That is a very valid point. The risk of sounding like a hostage reading a ransom note is very real if the delivery is poor.
Right. It could sound super robotic.
Exactly. If they rattle off that long sentence with zero inflection and shallow breathing, it will absolutely alienate the listener.
It's awkward.
But that is exactly why John's earlier instruction about natural pauses and rhythm is non-negotiable. The physical delivery must match the complexity of the syntax.
That makes sense. The delivery is the key.
However, your concern about over-explaining is a very common psychological barrier, and Emma explicitly addresses it in the masterclass.
What does she say? She tells the students directly, don't be afraid to use extra words.
That phrasing, "don't be afraid," is incredibly revealing, actually.
Isn't it?
Yeah, it implies that brevity isn't about efficiency. It's about fear.
Precisely. We often convince ourselves that we are keeping things short out of respect for the other person's time.
Right. I don't want to bother them.
But more often than not, we stay brief because we are afraid of taking up space. We're afraid of being boring or of making a grammatical error or of revealing too much about ourselves.
That is so true.
Emma is arguing that giving the listener more information is actually an act of generosity, not an imposition.
I really like that reframe.
Okay.
Because by giving them words like productive and important tasks, you establish your professional competence.
Right.
And then by giving them peaceful cup of tea, you establish your humanity. You show a capacity for self-care. It's a multi-dimensional portrait. It unseals the box.
It gives them a complete picture of who you are in that moment. But, you know, communication isn't just about painting pretty pictures of productive mornings.
Oh, definitely not.
The most vital part of Emma and John's lesson arrives when they tackle negative states, because true fluency requires the ability to articulate negative experiences with the exact same level of sophistication and grace.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Let's look at the final example from the masterclass, because it deals with a feeling we basically all experience constantly.
Yes, being tired.
Right. The basic sentence is just, I'm tired.
A classic.
And John's advanced transformation for this is, I'm feeling a bit drained today because I didn't get enough sleep last night, but I'm trying to stay focused.
The structural elegance of this transformation is just remarkable to me.
It's so good.
It takes a blunt, heavy complaint and engineers it into this narrative of resilience. If we dissect this, John has broken the negative state into 3 highly functional components.
Okay, what's the first one?
The first is the elevated descriptor. So instead of the permanent, immovable wall of, I'm tired, he uses, I'm feeling a bit drained today.
Feeling a bit drained completely changes the scope of the problem.
It really does.
Because tired sounds almost like a core personality trait in that moment, like it's never going away. But drained sounds like a temporary fluctuating state. It's just a battery that needs recharging.
Exactly. It softens the blow of the negativity for the listener.
It's very precise, but it is gentle. What's the second part?
The second component is the causal context. He says, because I didn't get enough sleep last night.
Oh, that's smart.
It's a brilliant piece of social calibration. Because when someone bluntly states, I'm tired, it carries a certain ambient hostility, whether they mean it to or not.
Yeah, you don't know where it's coming from.
Right. It can easily be misinterpreted by the listener as a rejection of the current environment. They might wonder, are you bored by this conversation? Are you tired of being here with me?
Oh, wow. Yeah. You take it personally.
Exactly. But by immediately providing the specific external cause, a bad night's sleep, the speaker removes all that ambiguity.
You are assuring the listener, look, this isn't about you. This is an external biological deficit. You are actively removing the potential for social friction right from the jump.
And then comes the third, and really the most vital component, the resilient resolution.
But I'm trying to stay focused.
This is the absolute game changer for me.
It's powerful.
Because think about the social burden of the basic sentence. If I walk up to you and just drop, I'm tired, what are you supposed to do with that information?
Right. I'm just stuck with it.
Yeah. You either have to awkwardly offer pity or you feel pressured to fix my problem, or you just have to absorb my negative energy. It forces you into a caretaking role. It's a total dead end.
But the advanced sentence entirely rescues that dynamic.
I'm feeling a bit drained because I didn't get enough sleep, but I'm trying to stay focused.
It's so complete.
It communicates that you are experiencing a deficit, sure, but you are actively managing it and you remain committed to your current responsibilities. It takes the emotional burden entirely off the listener.
Imagine deploying that specific structure in a really high-stakes environment, like a Monday morning status meeting with your boss.
Oh, perfect example.
If you walk in and just say, I'm tired, your manager immediately doubts your capacity to execute your job that day. You basically become a liability.
Absolutely.
But if you use the advanced structure, you acknowledge your human limitation while simultaneously demonstrating your professional commitment. You manage to sound incredibly reliable, even when operating at a deficit.
You're taking ownership of the situation.
Right. It allows you to be vulnerable without ever becoming a victim.
And John validates this breakdown completely in the lesson. After delivering the sentence, he simply notes, this is more advanced and more descriptive.
It really is.
It describes the internal symptom, the external cause, and the forward momentum. It is the absolute pinnacle of that natural confidence they are trying to teach.
So we have thoroughly dissected the mechanics of these sentences. We understand the trap of the choppy facts, the power of breathing and rhythm, the generosity of the conversational hook, and the social grace of the resilient complaint.
A lot of ground covered.
But, knowing the mechanics is really only half the battle. How do Emma and John suggest a learner actually internalize all this?
That's the million-dollar question.
Because having intellectual knowledge of sentence structure completely evaporates the moment you are put on the spot in a real conversation.
Oh, 100%. The panic sets in and you forget everything.
Exactly. So we have to look at the pedagogy they employ. How do they teach this?
The transition from theoretical understanding to practical execution is where the vast majority of language learning and really communication training in general just fails.
Right.
But the source material provides a highly specific framework for how Emma and John intend to permanently alter their students' habits.
So let's track the specific instructions they give directly to the listener throughout the masterclass. Obviously, there's the standard digital housekeeping. John tells them to subscribe to the channel and press the bell icon.
Right, which is just the reality of opting into a modern learning ecosystem.
Yeah, standard YouTube stuff. But then the physical and cognitive instructions begin. He instructs them to take a deep breath.
Crucial step.
They repeatedly command the listener to listen carefully, repeat after us. And then Emma offers that amazing psychological permission we talked about. Don't be afraid to use extra words.
Yes.
And finally, John provides the most crucial instruction of all regarding frequency. He says to practice speaking this way every single day.
This raises an important question, though. We really need to analyze what is physically and neurologically happening when a learner follows that sequence.
Okay, let's get into the neurology.
When John says to practice this way every day, he isn't just assigning homework to be annoying. He provides a profound neurological justification.
What does he say?
He says, when you practice speaking this way every day, your brain gets used to adding detail, connecting ideas, and using advanced vocabulary naturally.
The phrase your brain gets used to is the key to the entire methodology, isn't it?
It really is.
This isn't about memorizing flashcards. It's about acclimatization.
It is the literal process of cognitive rewiring. Look, every human being has established neural pathways that dictate their default communication style under pressure.
So if you're a turtle, you're wired to be a turtle.
Exactly. If your default is the choppy, defensive, factual style, your brain has physically wired itself to find safety and brevity.
Wow.
To change that default, you cannot just try really hard once during a conversation. That won't work.
Because the old pathway is too strong.
Right. You have to introduce a new behavioral pattern like actively adding the detail, actively enforcing the pause, and you have to repeat it in a low-stakes environment until the new neural pathway becomes stronger than the old one.
Repetition is everything.
The ultimate goal is to move the learner from conscious effort to unconscious competence.
Unconscious competence. I love that term. It's that state where you don't have to actively think, okay, wait, I need to add a resilient resolution to this complaint right now.
Right. You just do it.
Just flows out of you.
Right.
And that process highlights exactly why the physical instruction to take a deep breath is not just a throwaway line.
Not at all.
It is the mechanical foundation of the entire curriculum. Physically, a deep breath oxygenates the brain. It activates the parasympathetic nervous system, which directly counters that fight-or-flight anxiety that causes rushed, choppy speech in the first place.
The breath is the physiological tool used to create the psychological safety required to learn.
Beautifully put.
And Emma pairs that physical tool with explicit psychological permission when she says, don't be afraid to use extra words.
She hits the nail on the head.
She accurately identifies that the primary barrier isn't a lack of vocabulary for these advanced learners. It is the fear of taking up space and the fear of making a mistake. By naming that fear and giving explicit permission to push past it, she creates an environment where that cognitive rewiring is actually possible.
And John concludes the instructional loop by stating, the more you do it, the more fluent you become. And in this context, fluency isn't just about speaking English perfectly with no grammatical errors.
No, it's so much deeper than that.
True fluency is the lack of friction between your internal human experience and your external expression of it.
Exactly.
It's the ability to pull the messy, nuanced reality of your life out of that sealed box and hand it to someone else without losing any of the flavor.
It is the perfect alignment of thought, breath, and language.
Which brings us to the end of our deep dive into elevating daily fluency. Let's summarize the core mechanics for you to take away today.
Good idea. Let's recap.
What we've uncovered from Emma and John's masterclass is that moving from basic communication to advanced confident connection requires a fundamental shift in how you construct your reality for others.
It requires actively abandoning the safety of the short, purely factual sentence.
Right. No more sealed boxes, no more raw ingredients lists.
No more turtle shells.
Exactly. It requires slowing down your physical delivery. It requires utilizing the breath to create rhythm and intentional pauses that signal comfort and dominance in a space.
And it requires expanding your statements to include subjective emotion. You have to actively provide conversational hooks that invite others to engage with you.
And of course, managing your negative states with causal context and resilient resolutions.
And above all, it requires daily, deliberate repetition. You have to rewire the neural pathways that govern your speech, actively overriding the fear of using extra words and taking up space in the world.
It really changes the entire architecture of how we present ourselves to the people around us. Which leads me to a final thought I want to leave you with today. Something to mull over as you go about the rest of your day.
I love leaving people with a question.
So we have spent this entire deep dive analyzing how Emma and John teach that changing your words, moving from the blunt "I ate breakfast" to the descriptive "it set a positive tone for my morning," radically changes how others perceive your confidence and competence.
Yes, the external perception.
But if we follow the logic of cognitive rewiring to its ultimate conclusion, if you constantly train your brain every single day to narrate your own life with such rich, descriptive, resilient, and emotionally positive detail?
Right.
Does the language you use actually begin to change how you perceive your own life?
Oh, that was a profound question. Does the language simply reflect the reality, or does the language construct the reality?
Exactly. That is the ultimate question here.
Yeah.
If you force your brain to articulate the triumph of managing to wake up early or the specific joy of a quick but delicious breakfast, does the vocabulary you use to describe your mundane daily routine actually start to dictate the quality of that routine?
It makes you wonder.
Are you simply describing a better day to the people around you? Or by changing the words, are you actually speaking a better day into existence for yourself?
I think there's a strong argument that you're speaking it into existence.
It is something to seriously think about the next time someone casually asks you, "How's your morning?"
Definitely.
Remember, communication isn't an X-ray. It isn't a jagged white line of unfeeling fact. It is messy, it is entirely subjective, and it is exactly what you build it to be.
You're in control of it.
You are the one unpacking the box. Don't be afraid to add a little flavor.
So I want you to just picture this for a second.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
You are standing in the office break room.
Oh boy, I think I know where this is going.
Right. So the microwave has exactly 45 seconds left on the timer.
The longest 45 seconds of your life.
Exactly. And a coworker, like someone you sit maybe 20 feet away from every single day, walks in, they look at you, you look at them, and then, the inevitable happens. They ask, "Hey, how's your Tuesday going?"
Yes. The ultimate track.
Pure agony. You panic. Your brain just completely empties out. So you look at them and you just say, "It's fine."
Of course.
And they nod. They say, "Good. Yeah, same." And then for the next 40 seconds, you both just stare at the rotating Tupperware in this agonizing, suffocating silence.
It's so painful. But it's universal.
It is. And you have to wonder, why do we do this? Why do we actively murder human connection when it is handed to us on a silver platter?
Right.
Okay, let's unpack this, because there is a trap that I think absolutely every single one of us falls into on, an almost daily basis.
Definitely.
I am talking about the trap of the conversational dead end. The one-word answer.
Oh, absolutely.
You run into someone, they ask you how you are or what you're doing later or what you thought of a movie, and you just give them this totally flat, brief, almost robotic response.
Yeah.
It is as if we are socially programmed to shut down the interaction before it even has a chance to breathe.
It is incredibly common. And, what's fascinating here is that we all do it without even realizing it. We just default to these highly transactional exchanges.
Transactional, right?
Yeah, like someone asks, "How are you?" And we say, "Good." They ask, "What are your plans?" And we say, "Nothing much." It is basically a conversational defense mechanism.
Like a defense mechanism. How so?
Well, think about it. We live in a world of high cognitive load. Our brains are constantly trying to conserve energy. So we treat small talk like a toll booth.
Oh, wow. A toll booth.
Right. We just want to hand over the verbal currency like the "I'm fine" and get through the interaction as quickly as possible.
Yes. It is exactly like paying a toll. But the tragedy is we're doing this with our friends, our family, our colleagues.
People we actually like?
Exactly. People we actually want to connect with. And that is exactly why today we are going on a deep dive into some truly fascinating excerpts from a source titled "Beyond the Basics, Mastering Advanced Conversational English."
It's a great source.
It really is. Now listen, I know what you might be thinking. A source on conversational English. Is this going to be a grammar lesson?
Right. Nobody wants that.
No, absolutely not. Our mission for this deep dive is to use this material to decode the hidden mechanics of human connection.
Yes.
We are looking at exactly how a learner, or quite honestly, a native speaker, because we are all guilty of that break room microwave silence.
We are.
How we transition from those brief, dead-end responses to nuanced, fluent, and actually engaging communication.
And what's fascinating here is that this source material reveals a fundamental misconception about what the term advanced actually means.
Oh, totally.
Because when most people hear the phrase advanced English, they immediately think of a vocabulary test.
Right, like flashcards and spelling bees.
Exactly. They think it means memorizing the longest, most obscure, most complicated words in the dictionary and just, cramming them into a sentence to sound intelligent.
To sound like an academic paper.
Yeah, but the core premise established here is completely different. It makes it crystal clear that advanced fluency is not about using $20 words. It is entirely about expressing yourself clearly, richly, and naturally by developing the habit of vulnerability. It's about adding detail and nuance to your everyday reality.
So it's not about sounding like a walking thesaurus.
Not at all.
It's about sounding human. And so for you listening right now, whether you are actively trying to improve your communication skills or you are prepping for a networking event where you need to make a genuinely good impression.
Or even just at home.
Honestly, yes. Even if you just want to have better, more engaging conversations with your spouse at the dinner table, this deep dive is going to fundamentally transform how you answer everyday questions.
It's a profound shift in mindset. We are moving the goalpost from mere accuracy to actual expressiveness.
Oh, I like that. Accuracy to expressiveness.
Because when you say, I am fine, you are technically grammatically accurate.
Yeah.
But you are expressively bankrupt.
Expressively bankrupt. Wow. I love that. And I hate how much I relate to it.
It hits hard, doesn't it?
It really does.
Yeah.
So let's jump right into the first specific area of daily life the source covers, which is discussing future plans.
The absolute bread and butter of small talk.
Right. You run into an old acquaintance at the grocery store and they ask, what are you doing later? The source points out that a basic beginner answer, or let's be real, the answer I give when I'm just tired would just be, I will meet my friend.
Right. Grammatically perfect, expressively empty.
Exactly. And the source contrasts this with what they call the advanced version, which goes like this. Later this afternoon, I'm planning to meet up with a close friend of mine. We haven't seen each other in a while, so I'm really looking forward to catching up over coffee.
It's a great example.
It is, but hold on. I'm going to push back here because I can hear the friction in my own head.
Okay, let's hear it.
If I ask a coworker what they're doing and they hit me with that huge 4-part sentence, am I going to think they are oversharing? Like, isn't the short answer just more efficient? I will meet my friend. Boom. Done. Information conveyed. Where is the line between being engaging and just like talking someone's ear off when they were just being polite?
That is the exact tension we need to navigate. It comes back to that toll booth analogy we talked about.
Okay, yeah.
If human conversation were purely about data transfer, then yes, I will meet my friend is perfectly efficient. It is like a machine transmitting a binary code to another machine. But human conversation shouldn't be efficient. Efficiency in small talk actually kills the interaction.
Wow. Okay.
When you worry about oversharing in this context, you are misunderstanding what oversharing actually is. Oversharing is dumping uninvited emotional trauma on someone.
Oh, right. Like telling the cashier about your messy divorce.
Exactly. But what this advanced sentence is doing is entirely different. The speaker is strategically embedding conversational hooks into the interaction.
Okay, hooks. I like that visual. Break that down for me. What exactly are the hooks in that sentence?
Let's look closely at the architecture of it. Later this afternoon, I'm planning to meet up with a close friend of mine. We haven't seen each other in a while, so I'm really looking forward to catching up over coffee. There are 4 distinct hooks here, deliberately placed.
Okay.
First, the speaker establishes a timeline, later this afternoon. Second, they define the relationship, a close friend of mine. Third, they provide history or context. We haven't seen each other in a while. And fourth, they state the specific activity, catching up over coffee.
Oh, wow. I didn't even realize how structured that was. It just sounded natural. But you're right. It's hitting 4 very specific data points.
Precisely. And by providing those 4 hooks, the speaker is essentially opening 4 different doors.
Right.
They are giving the listener 4 distinct opportunities to continue the conversation based on their own interests or even their comfort level.
So they get to check how to respond.
Exactly. If the listener's in a rush, they can grab the timeline hook and just say, oh, well, have a great afternoon, and leave.
Right. The easy out.
Yeah. But if the listener's curious about your social circle, they can grab the relationship hook and ask, oh, a close friend, have you known them long?
Oh, I see.
Or if they're a nostalgic person, they grab the history hook. It's always so great to reunite with people you haven't seen in a long time. Or if they're a foodie, they grab the activity hook. I love a good coffee catch-up. What cafe are you going to?
That is brilliant. It completely reframes the interaction. You aren't forcing them to listen to a monologue. You are offering them a menu of options.
A menu of options, yeah.
You are inviting them to participate in the dialogue on their own terms. If you just say, I will meet my friend, You offer a menu with nothing on it.
Exactly.
The listener has nowhere to go. Yeah. They literally have to do all the heavy lifting to keep the conversation alive by interrogating you.
Right.
Oh, which friend? When? Where?
And nobody wants to do that.
No. It makes the other person feel like an investigative journalist just trying to have a normal chat.
Exactly. And no one wants to feel like they're interrogating you. Yeah. Eventually, they will just stop asking. They will accept the dead end.
Which kills the connection.
Right. But there's another layer to this that the source highlights, which has to do with the actual verbs being used.
Okay.
The basic sentence relies on a rigid absolute, I will meet.
Right. It feels almost aggressive in its certainty, like a military operation. I will meet the friend at 1400 hours.
It does. It's very stiff. But the advanced version uses a different construction. It says, I'm planning to meet up.
Planning to meet up, yeah.
This is a massive leap in communicative grace. I'm planning to reflects the actual reality of human life, which is that things are tentative.
Right, because things change.
Exactly. Trains run late, kids get sick, life happens. When you say, I'm planning to, you are speaking with a softer, more flexible tone. It sounds remarkably more natural because it acknowledges the shared human experience of unpredictability.
And the phrase meet up instead of just meet, it adds this casual, warm texture. It's so much less formal.
It really is.
You know, this makes me think of Friday afternoons, the classic universal question that gets asked millions of times every Friday. Do you have any plans for the weekend?
Oh, the dreaded weekend question.
Yes. The source actually tackles this exact scenario. And again, the basic answer is usually, yes, I will rest. And there is that rigid, I will, again.
Sounds like a computer powering down. Task complete. I will rest.
It really does. But the advanced alternative they provide is so much richer. It goes, this weekend, I'm hoping to get some much-needed rest, but I'm also planning to spend time with family and maybe even explore a new restaurant in the city.
That's a great one.
Right. I feel like I've heard variations of that exact sentence 1,000 times from highly charismatic people, and I never realized it was a formula.
It is a formula, and it's a very empathetic one. Yeah. This is a perfect evolution of the previous concept. We move from the absolute I will rest to the softer, aspirational I'm hoping to, and I'm also planning to. But let's look deeper at the psychology of this sentence. When you say, I'm hoping to get some much-needed rest, you're doing something incredibly vulnerable.
Because you're admitting that you are tired.
Exactly. You are acknowledging a human deficit. The phrase much-needed rest implies that you've been working hard, that you've been carrying a heavy load, and that your battery is drained. In modern corporate culture, there is this toxic pressure to always be crushing it, to always be energetic. Admitting exhaustion is a micro act of vulnerability, and vulnerability is the absolute prerequisite for connection.
I love that. Much-needed rest gives the listener a tiny glimpse into your state of mind without you having to complain or trauma dump about your stressful week.
Right.
It is incredibly relatable. Everyone understands much-needed rest.
And then the sentence does something structurally brilliant. It introduces a conceptual contrast.
A contrast, yeah.
It balances that internal passive need, the much-needed rest, with an active external desire.
Yeah.
But I'm also planning to spend time with family and maybe even explore a new restaurant.
It captures the universal dilemma of the weekend. We all face this every single Saturday morning.
We really do.
We want to lay on the couch and recover, but we also feel this intense pressure to actually live our lives and do something memorable.
Exactly. By expressing that contrast out loud, the speaker instantly becomes a three-dimensional person.
Right.
They aren't just a robot entering sleep mode for 48 hours. They're a complex human being actively trying to balance self-care with social exploration. They are inviting the listener into their internal tug of war.
That's so true.
And again, look at the hooks. You can talk about the need for rest, you can talk about the family, or you can talk about the new restaurant.
This is completely changing how I view small talk. It's not a chore, it's a canvas.
A canvas is a perfect way to put it.
And you don't even have to be doing something spectacular to use this technique. The source actually uses an incredibly boring, mundane example to prove this point.
Oh, the shopping one?
Yes. The prompt is simply, I will go shopping. That is the task. You are going to buy toilet paper and milk. How do you make that advanced? How do you make that engaging?
Right.
The source provides two different expansions.
Let's hear them.
Okay, version 1 is, I'm planning to go shopping tomorrow afternoon to pick up a few essentials, and I might also browse around for some new clothes. In version 2 is, I need to go shopping later today, mostly for groceries, but I also want to check out the bookstore nearby.
What stands out to you when you hear those?
Honestly, It's that they don't use the word buy. The word buy is totally absent.
That's a great observation.
Right. Instead, they use these phrasal verbs. Pick up a few essentials, browse around, check out. If someone says, I'm going to buy groceries, it sounds like a chore. It sounds heavy.
It does. It sounds like an obligation.
But picking up a few essentials sounds light, quick, almost breezy, and browsing around, that completely changes the vibe.
How so?
Well, browsing implies a leisurely pace. It implies you are open to discovery, that you have free time to just wander. It turns a boring task into a vivid, relatable slice of a person's day.
This is a crucial insight. The reality is 90% of our lives is mundane.
Yeah, unfortunately.
We are doing laundry, we are commuting, we are buying groceries. If we only reserve our descriptive, engaging language for the 10% of our lives when we are on vacation in Italy, we're going to be terrible conversationalists most of the time.
Wow, that is such a good point.
The secret to being a captivating communicator is learning how to navigate the mundane details of life with linguistic grace.
That is so true. If you can make a trip to the grocery store sound like a pleasant afternoon outing, you are a master of conversation.
And notice the underlying architecture again. Both of those shopping examples use the contrast mechanism we saw in the weekend plans.
Oh, you're right.
Mostly for groceries, but I also want to check out the bookstore. It's duty versus pleasure. It's the chore paired with the reward.
Yeah.
This is a very natural rhythm of human thought, and when you mirror that rhythm in your speech, people instinctively resonate with it.
It just paints such a clear picture, and, sharing these detailed slices of life, these mundane chores, these weekend dilemmas, it naturally forces us to confront something deeper.
It does.
Because when we talk about what we do and the tension between our duties and our desires, we are inevitably brushing up against how these things make us feel.
Exactly.
Which is the perfect bridge to the next major psychological hurdle the source tackles. We're moving from external actions to internal emotions.
Which is, for many people, an incredibly intimidating terrain to navigate.
Oh, it's terrifying. Here's where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
Because describing our actions is safe. Describing our feelings requires risk.
Absolutely.
And the source material points out that when it comes to feelings, a lot of adults essentially revert to a toddler's vocabulary. We use these extremely basic, absolute binary statements, I'm happy or I'm sad.
Right.
And I want to use an analogy here to explain why this fails in conversation. Imagine you ask me how I am and I want to express joy. If I just say I'm happy, it's like I'm taking a giant paintbrush, dipping it in a bucket of neon yellow paint, and just slapping it across an entire canvas.
Oh, I like that image.
There is no texture, there is no shading, there is no background. It is just a flat, blinding wall of yellow.
That is a remarkably accurate analogy. A flat wall of yellow gives the observer nothing to explore. It lacks any dimension.
Right.
The listener is just confronted with an absolute state of being. And the advanced alternatives provided in the source are specifically designed to add the shading, the texture, and the background back into the painting.
Exactly. So instead of just slapping the yellow paint and saying, I'm happy, the advanced example is, I'm absolutely delighted because I received some wonderful news today.
What's better?
And instead of the heavy dark blue paint of, I'm sad, the alternative is, I'm feeling a bit down today because the weather has been gloomy and it's affecting my mood.
The primary colors are gone. We have introduced nuance. We have mixed the paints.
We have, but why does it work so much better?
This raises an important question. What is the actual mechanical engine driving that nuance? Why does the second version feel so much more inviting?
Yeah, what's the trick?
The critical mechanism in both of those advanced sentences is the addition of a single word, because.
The because bridge.
Yes, the because bridge. Advanced human connection requires linking your internal, invisible emotion to a specific, external, understandable catalyst.
Okay, I see.
You don't just exist in a vacuum of random delight. You are delighted because you received wonderful news.
Right.
You aren't just inherently permanently sad. You are feeling down because the gloomy weather is affecting your mood.
The because is literally the bridge between your isolated internal world and the listener standing on the outside.
Exactly.
If I just say, I'm happy, I am locked in my castle, and the drawbridge is up, the listener is in the moat. But if I say, I'm absolutely delighted because I received some wonderful news today, I'm lowering the drawbridge.
That's a perfect way to look at it.
I'm practically begging the listener to walk across it and ask, oh my gosh, what's the news? I'm setting up the conversational volley.
Precisely. You're giving them permission to enter.
Okay.
But there is another layer to this that is equally important, which is the emotional intelligence required to diagnose your own state.
Diagnosing your state.
Oh. Notice the shift in the language of sadness. The source moves away from the absolute heavy word sad and replaces it with the much more modulated phrase, feeling a bit down.
That's a huge difference. Sad feels permanent. Feeling a bit down feels temporary.
In natural adult speech, saying I am sad is actually quite rare. It carries a massive emotional weight.
It does.
Usually we reserve sad for genuine tragedy, like a loss or severe heartbreak. If you tell a coworker, I am sad, their immediate reaction is going to be alarm. They will think something terrible has happened.
Right, they might panic.
But feeling a bit down is the precise frequency of everyday melancholy. It is the language of a rainy Tuesday. Recognizing and utilizing that modulation is a massive leap in social fluency.
Wow.
It tells the listener, I am not at my best, but it is not an emergency.
It's like having a volume dial on your emotions. The basic vocabulary only has a 0 or a 10. You are either fine or you are devastated. The advanced vocabulary gives you a dial that lets you set it to a 3 or a 4 or a 7. And they take this concept even further with an emotion that is notoriously difficult to handle in conversation. Anger.
Anger is the ultimate conversation killer, if not handled correctly.
No, absolutely. If someone asks how you are, and you say, I'm angry, the conversation is effectively over because the listener's fight or flight response just activated.
Immediately.
It is such an intense primary color, but the source takes that basic feeling of I'm angry and expands it to this. I am quite frustrated because I spent so much time working on that project and it didn't turn out the way I expected.
Think about how deeply disarming that sentence is.
Yeah.
Let's look at the emotional mechanics at play here.
It's a complete de-escalation. Saying I'm angry is confrontational. It's a closed fist.
Right.
It makes the listener feel like they are in the blast zone of a bomb that could go off at any second. They immediately put up their defensive walls, but changing angry to quite frustrated immediately lowers the temperature in the room. It unclenches the fist.
It does. Frustrated implies an obstacle, whereas angry implies an enemy.
Oh, I like that. An obstacle versus an enemy.
That is a vital distinction.
Yeah.
And then by following it with the bridge, because bridge explaining that the frustration stems from time spent on a project and unmet expectations. The speaker is doing something incredibly courageous. They're explaining the mechanics of their pain.
They aren't lashing out. They are stepping back and analyzing themselves out loud.
Exactly. When you explain that your frustration comes from hard work not paying off, the listener doesn't feel defensive anymore. They feel sympathetic.
Because they've been there.
Exactly. Because who hasn't worked hard on something only to have it fail? Who hasn't experienced unmet expectations?
Yeah.
By diagnosing the root cause of your negative emotion, you're inviting empathy rather than defensiveness. You're giving the listener a shared human experience to connect with.
That is such a crucial point. The language you choose dictates the reaction you get. If you speak in absolutes, you get defensive walls or awkward silence. If you speak in nuanced causal relationships, if you use the because bridge, you get empathy. And honestly, this specific skill of navigating negative emotions is never more important and never more fraught with danger than in the workplace.
The workplace is the ultimate testing ground for this type of communication.
It is the gauntlet. And the source material tackles this head on. They bring up a scenario that I guarantee every single person listening has faced. A colleague or a manager or a friend from another department asks you, so how do you feel about your job these days?
And 99% of the time, the answer is,
It's fine.
It's fine. Perhaps the most universally utilized, heavily armored shield in the modern English language.
It tells you absolutely nothing. And ironically, usually when someone says, my job is fine, it means they are either bored to tears, actively updating their resume, or so stressed they are about to snap.
Pretty much.
So how do we break past the shield? The source gives us two ways to navigate this, a positive and a negative. The positive advanced version is, lately, I've been feeling quite motivated at work because I've been given more responsibility and I'm enjoying the challenge.
Notice the structure there.
Yeah.
The emotion, motivated, the catalyst, more responsibility, the internal result, enjoying the challenge. It is a perfectly calibrated professional update.
It is, but the negative example is the one that absolutely blew my mind.
Why is that?
Because complaining about your job is a minefield. The basic, blunt way to say it is just, I don't like my job.
Yeah, which is not great.
No, but the advanced version they suggest is this. Recently, I've been feeling a bit unfulfilled at work because the tasks have become repetitive and I don't feel like I'm learning anything new.
That sentence is a masterclass in professional communication. Let's really pull that apart. Why does "I don't like my job" fail?
Because it sounds like a teenager complaining about having to do chores. It sounds petty.
Right.
It sounds like a character flaw. If you say, "I don't like my job," the listener might just think you are lazy or difficult to work with. It's an attack on the job, which makes you look negative.
Precisely. It is an unexamined complaint.
Mm-hmm.
But saying, "I am feeling a bit unfulfilled," fundamentally shifts the paradigm. It takes the conversation out of the realm of petty complaints and elevates it into a structural critique of your career trajectory.
Wow.
You aren't attacking the company, and you aren't attacking your boss. You are diagnosing a mismatch between your capacity and your current role.
It's so mature. You are identifying the exact catalysts,
Right.
the lack of learning, and the repetitive nature of the tasks.
Exactly.
You are objectively stating that your fundamental human need for growth is not being met. I feel like if you say, "I don't like my job" to a manager, they get defensive.
Naturally.
But if you say, "I'm feeling unfulfilled because the tasks are repetitive and I'm not learning," a good manager will actually lean in. They will say, "Okay, how can we fix that? Can we get you on a new project?"
Exactly.
Yeah.
You have transformed a dead-end complaint into a solvable problem. But I want to highlight something even deeper here.
Okay, what is it?
This isn't just about managing other people's perceptions of you. It's about managing your perception of yourself.
Oh, interesting.
When you force yourself to articulate why you are unhappy, when you force yourself to find the because, you actually gain clarity on your own life.
So it's for you as much as for them.
Yes. You might realize, "Oh, I don't actually hate the company, I'm just bored." That clarity is invaluable. The words we use to describe our situation actually shape our understanding of that situation.
We are using language to figure ourselves out in real time. It's diagnosing why you feel a certain way, rather than just treating the feeling as a blunt, immovable object.
Exactly.
And the specific intellectual muscle, this ability to diagnose the why behind an internal feeling, is the exact same muscle we need to evaluate the external world. Whether we are judging a piece of art, a book, a new piece of software, or a plate of food. Which brings us to the final psychological barrier the source material explores, the art of the critique, or how we give opinions.
Moving from analyzing our internal feelings to analyzing our external experiences is a very natural, necessary progression. We are applying the same analytical framework to the world around us.
So what does this all mean when we take this framework out into the wild? Let's talk about evaluating everyday opinions.
Okay.
The source sets up the classic, ubiquitous scenario of the movie review. You just walked out of the theater or you just finished binge watching a show on your couch and someone asks, "Did you enjoy it?"
A question we hear all the time.
Exactly. And the basic default answer, the one that escapes our lips before we even think, is either "yes, it was good" or "no, I didn't like it."
The verbal equivalent of a thumbs up or a thumbs down emoji.
Exactly. And I want you, the listener, to seriously consider your own life for a second. Think about how many conversations have died a sudden tragic death immediately after someone says, "Yeah, it was good."
Too many to count.
It's the ultimate conversation killer. You walk out of a 2-hour visual and emotional journey, and the best you can muster is, "It was good." Are we just being intellectually lazy? Or do we genuinely lack the tools to dissect and experience out loud? Do we outsource our opinions to reviewers online so we don't have to form our own?
It is very often a lack of linguistic tools. We feel the complexity of the film, but we don't know how to externalize it without sounding pretentious.
Right, nobody wants to sound like a film snob.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which is exactly what this material is trying to remedy. The advanced speaker understands that a movie, or a book, or a meal is not a monolith. You cannot accurately judge it with a single blunt instrument like good or bad.
Right.
The advanced speaker breaks the subject down into its component parts.
They dismantle it. Let's look at the positive example they provide. The advanced answer is, "Yes, I really enjoyed the movie. The storyline was engaging, and the acting was so convincing that I felt completely absorbed."
The structural genius of that response is the isolation of specific variables.
Okay, variables.
The speaker takes this massive, complex entity called the movie and splits it into two distinct, observable components: the storyline and the acting. They then assign a highly specific descriptive adjective to each of those components. The storyline wasn't just good, it was engaging. The acting wasn't just nice, it was convincing.
Wow. Yeah.
And finally, they connect those external objective elements back to their internal subjective state. I felt completely absorbed.
Completely absorbed. It's such a visceral description. It's like you are giving the listener a guided mini tour of your brain while you were sitting in the theater.
Exactly.
You're showing them your work. And the brilliant part is the negative review does the exact same thing, just in reverse.
Let's hear it.
Instead of just shrugging and saying, I didn't like it, it was boring, the advanced version is, honestly, I didn't enjoy the movie as much as I expected. The pacing felt a bit slow and I couldn't connect with the main character.
There is a lot happening socially in that negative review. First, notice the polite softening at the beginning. Honestly, I didn't enjoy the movie as much as I expected.
It's a very diplomatic way of saying it was a train wreck.
It is, but more importantly, it frames the failure as a mismatch of personal expectations rather than an objective, absolute failure of the film.
Oh, that's clever.
It leaves room for the other person to have liked it. If you say, that movie was garbage, and your friends secretly loved it, you have just insulted them.
Yeah, you've painted them into a corner.
Exactly. But if you say, I didn't enjoy it as much as I expected, you're taking ownership of the reaction. And again, the critique isolates components. It targets the pacing and the lack of connection with the main character.
Which is so much more interesting for a conversation. If you say, it was bad, the other person just says, oh, okay.
Yeah, dead end.
But if you say, the pacing felt slow, the other person can jump in and say, oh, I totally agree. The entire second act just dragged. They could have cut 20 minutes. Yep. Or they could disagree and say, really, I thought the slow pacing built incredible tension.
Exactly.
By isolating the component, you have given them specific material to agree or disagree with. You have built a playground for the conversation.
You have provided the hooks. It all comes back to the hooks.
It really does. Which brings us to the final scenario and the source material, and honestly, the one that haunts me the most.
Oh no, what is it?
The culinary critique. The restaurant review.
Ah, yes. The dining experience.
I have a personal vendetta against the basic answer here. The source tackles the incredibly simple, tragic sentence. The food was nice.
Nice.
I have been on dates where I asked how the meal was and the person just looked at me and said, it's nice. It is maddening. Nice is the most beige, flavorless, non-committal word in the English dictionary. It tells me nothing.
Nice is the refusal to take a stance.
Yeah.
It is the refusal to observe.
Exactly. So the prompt here is to upgrade that beige sentence. And the positive advanced version is, the food was really impressive, especially the way the flavors blended together. I was pleasantly surprised by how fresh everything tasted.
That is a phenomenal upgrade.
I am amazed by how much heavy lifting the phrase pleasantly surprised does in that sentence. It sounds so native, so casually sophisticated. What does that phrase actually communicate?
Well, pleasantly surprised is a micro-narrative.
A micro-narrative.
Yeah, it implies a journey. It tells the listener that you entered the restaurant perhaps a bit skeptical or with neutral expectations, and the quality of the experience actively won you over.
Oh, I see.
It is a dynamic state of being, not a static one. You are telling a story of transformation in just 2 words.
It's so much better than just saying, I am happy with the food. But the negative version is where the real magic happens.
Complaining about food is tricky.
It is, because complaining about food without sounding like a snob is an art form. The negative advanced version is, the food was quite disappointing, to be honest. The presentation looked great, but the flavors didn't match my expectations.
What is particularly strong and psychologically mature in that negative review is the deliberate use of contrast.
Right.
The presentation looked great, but the flavors didn't match my expectations.
You're holding 2 opposing ideas at the same time.
Yes. This is a hallmark of truly advanced fluency, both linguistically and cognitively. It proves that advanced communication thrives on nuance and the acknowledgement of complexity.
Yeah.
We live in a society that increasingly demands binary judgments. Everything is either the greatest thing ever made or it is absolute trash, canceled or worshipped, 5 stars or 1 star.
Oh, totally. The internet has ruined nuance.
Exactly. But reality rarely exists in the extremes. The speaker here is capable of holding 2 conflicting truths simultaneously. The food was visually appealing, but it was gastronomically disappointing. It is not an all-or-nothing judgment.
It is such a mature way to look at the world. It doesn't just dismiss the whole chef, the whole restaurant, the whole evening as terrible.
Exactly.
It gives credit where credit is due. The plating was beautiful, but it still maintains a critical, observant eye on the flavor. It is fair. And when you are fair in your critiques, people trust your opinion more. They actually want to talk to you.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, if we step back and look at the entire journey through this source material, it reveals a very clear, very powerful through line.
Okay, what's the grand unified theory here?
The key takeaway across all three of these domains, whether you are discussing your weekend plans, expressing your frustrations at work, or giving your opinion on a plate of pasta, is the active habit of elaboration.
Collaboration.
It is the refusal to settle for the one-word answer. It is the habit of finding the hooks, providing the because bridge, and deliberately breaking monolithic absolute statements into nuanced, observable parts. Sounding advanced or being a captivating conversationalist is not a matter of your vocabulary size. It is not about memorizing the dictionary. It is a matter of expressive risk.
Expressive risk.
It is about allowing your language to reflect the actual, messy, beautiful complexity of your thoughts and experiences.
It is about letting people in. The one-word answer keeps the door shut. Elaboration opens the door. It really is that simple.
It really is.
So here's my challenge to you, the listener. The next time you are in a conversation, maybe it's later today in the break room when the microwave is running, maybe it's tomorrow morning with your partner, maybe it's next week at a networking event, and someone asks you about your weekend or your job or what you thought of a movie, I want you to catch yourself.
Intercept the instinct.
Yes. Catch yourself right before you give that three-word dead-end answer. Stop the, it was good. Stop the nothing much. Stop the, I'm fine.
Take a breath.
Exactly. Take a breath and build out the sentence. Give them a hook. Give them a because. Isolate a component. Let them see the details of what you are actually experiencing in that moment.
It requires a small amount of extra effort, yes. It requires a slight moment of vulnerability to admit you were tired or to take a stance on a movie.
Right.
But the return on that tiny emotional investment is profound. You get a genuine human interaction. You transform a mere transaction into a real connection.
Exactly. You stop paying the toll and you actually start driving on the highway. And I want to leave you with a final, slightly provocative thought to mull over as you go about the rest of your day.
I love a good provocative thought.
We've spent this whole time talking about language as a tool to connect with other people. But what if the stakes are even higher than that?
Higher than connection.
Yeah. What if the actual quality of your life is dictated by the language you use to describe it?
Oh, wow.
If we constantly speak in brief, robotic, beige summaries, it's fine, it was good, I will rest. Do our lives actually become fine, good, and robotic? That's a scary thought.
Right. But if we force ourselves to find the nuance, to articulate the pleasantly surprised moments, to diagnose the exact source of our frustrations, might we not only have better conversations, but actually start living more fully, more presently in the rich, vibrant details of our own lives? Think about it. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.